Hi, Carol.
How are you?
Oh, I'm well, thanks. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Very
Oh,
nice
thank you.
on Instagram.
Yeah, nice to meet you. Thank you so much for coming.
Absolutely delighted to be.
Yeah, so you're the CEO of Food Rescue US,
That's correct.
and so I thought I'd start with some numbers. I'd tell people some numbers I saw on your website. So at the end of 2020, in the US, 50, sorry, 54 million people faced food insecurity.
I know,
I mean,
right?
it's almost the size of England.
Yeah,
It's more than the entire population of Canada.
yeah.
So imagine every Canadian, I know there's some Canadians on here, every Canadian going to bed not knowing or worrying about food. So I found that number astonishing.
It's such a crisis in America and certainly around the world as well, but we're talking about America right here with that statistic. And it's been millions of people, almost 40 million people food insecure in America for a long time. The numbers went down a little bit in 2019 and then they went up again. And then with COVID and the pandemic, they really spiked up with so many people who suddenly became unemployed, and many of them became food insecure for the first time. So I often say pre-pandemic, pre-COVID, this was already an
Mm-hmm.
emergency, a crisis in this country. And the pandemic only made it that much worse. So the numbers, we're predicting are going to come down a bit in 2021. But the reality is we're still talking about 40 million people, and many of them, millions of them, children, which is just heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking for anybody, but kids in their early developmental days, years, it's especially tragic.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw on the site that 2019, the numbers were 10.5%. And then during COVID, it's almost 1 in 4, which is, it's kind of mind boggling.
Right, it is, for sure.
Yeah. And then on the other hand, the number one item in landfills is food. I think 24% of food of the volume of landfill by weight is food. And over a third of the food we produce goes uneaten. So you're connecting those two things. And you're getting fresh food to people.
Right. So, you got it absolutely right. And I often describe it, we take a really bad thing, which is food waste. So when food waste ends up in landfills, it creates methane gas, which is one of the most harmful greenhouse gases that contributes to global warming. So what we do is we get so much of that food waste before it gets there, and then we do good with it, and we have good outcomes because, and as you said, so much of it is fresh, healthy food, and we're able to directly transfer that to social service agencies that are feeding the food insecure. So it's a double win, quite frankly. But the numbers are so enormous, and you're right, as high as 40% of food is wasted from farm to table, all the way through the whole food supply chain. So our model, our platform, it works, and it helps solve two serious crises at the same time.
Right. And so you rescue food from where? From businesses
We rescue
and
food.
farms?
So we rescue food from any place where there is surplus healthy food. So first and foremost, certainly from grocery stores, restaurants, corporate dining facilities, schools, even hospitals. And then corporate dining is also a big source. And then even early in 2020, pre-pandemic, we rescued from the Super Bowl in Miami at the Hard Rock Stadium over
Oh,
over 40,000 pounds of surplus food that all was delivered to social service agencies in the Miami area. So what we're able to do, and we especially did this last year, 2020, and still doing it this year, is we're able to both do smaller rescues, and we're all about direct transfer. So we use volunteers who are our food rescuers, and they will go pick up a food donation, whether it's from a grocery store or at the other end of it at the Hard Rock Stadium. And in their own cars, they will deliver the food directly, no warehouses, directly to the agencies that are feeding the food insecure. But we can go small and we can go big. And so during COVID, a number of our locations around the country delivered a lot of the USDA Farmers to Food boxes, which you probably read about, which that program is concluding the end of this month. But in the meantime, an awful lot of people benefited it tremendously. And a lot of our sites were able to receive literally a truckload of these boxes, and using volunteers, we're able to get them delivered.
Wow, that's amazing. I read about the Super Bowl. I didn't know that was you.
Yeah, in Miami, that was us.
Ah, that's great.
Yeah.
And so you've got some sort of technology that enables you to have the volunteers get the food and take it directly to social services rather than sit in a warehouse. And so that enables you to, get the fresh food before it, starts to head south.
Deteriorate. Absolutely. So we call our technology our engine, essentially. And we're now doing about 10,000 rescues a month. So think about that, 10,000 times individuals getting in their cars and doing picking up food donation and delivering it. And so we couldn't do this with Excel sheets and on the telephone. You just couldn't do it. So the technology is absolutely critical. And it connects, first of all, the food donor. So the information about a food donation will go into the software. It will also, information will go in about the receiving agency, the social service agencies, and then individuals sign up as volunteer food rescuers. And so depending on if we are in one of your locations, they can go in and say, like in Miami, since we were talking about Miami, they can see what the rescues are for the week or for the month. And they can claim one of them. They'll say, well, I will do that Whole Foods rescue and deliver it directly to the social service agency. So it's very efficient, and almost all of our rescues are claimed, and some are even adopted by some people will say, I'm going to do that Trader Joe's rescue every Wednesday at 11 o'clock or every Saturday at 11 o'clock. So we have thousands of volunteer rescuers, and the app, the software is what connects it all, makes it all possible.
Yeah, I saw you have almost 9,000 volunteers.
Correct. Definitely in the thousands. And we just launched actually the 3rd generation of our software, and it is just that much better. The first one was it was groundbreaking 10 years ago when we were founded. We were one of the first food rescue organizations that had used technology. Now a lot of organizations do, but we've continued to upgrade we do a lot of our reporting and analytics right out of our software as well.
And so is that on the App Store? How would someone?
No, they go to our website, which is rescue.us, and it'll take you right to how they can register. They can see where we're located. And if we're not in, if we're not in wherever you might live, wherever an individual might live, then they can indicate an interest in talking to us about, well, maybe we might like to start a food recovery site in my location. And the reality is, and I think we all know this, there's food insecurity everywhere. It's everywhere. It's the kids who go to school with our children, and so that's the part of the crisis.
Right. And okay, so say some of the people on here are working in the food industry or they have a food business. How can they get involved?
Okay, so we would love to talk to them as well. They can also go on the website and send us a message, or they can go to info@foodrescue.us and say, I'm a restaurant, or I'm a grocer, or I'm, a corporate dining facility, or a national food distributor, and would love to talk to you, because we're now doing more national food distribution and looking deeper into developing relationships both directly with the farms and with food distributors. And we worked with a lot of them through the Farmers to Families program, food box program, and so we've established a lot of new relationships.
Okay. And so there might be a business out there who's thinking, all right, I'd like to donate food, but I don't want to get sued. What if somebody eats my food and they get sick and they sue me and put me out of business?
Right. And I understand that question. But the good news is that there is a federal law called the Bill Emerson Good Samaritan Act that protects any entity that donates food for a nonprofit good cause in good faith. And it protects them for civil and criminal against civil and criminal suits. So it was the U.S. government recognizing the role that donated food can play in helping to lower food insecurity in America, and recognizing that there's a lot of fresh, healthy food that was and is going to waste.
Yeah, that's great, and I love that on your website there are all these pictures of fresh, healthy food. It's not a whole bunch of highly processed canned stuff that. Anyway, yeah. And then, so you're not only helping reduce food waste and getting food to people who need it, but you also foster a community.
Absolutely. And I will say, from 10 years ago when we were founded, the organization was really founded on building communities, sort of one community at a time, where people are helping their neighbors. And it's really one of the beautiful things. So you've got, in a community, you've got the food donors, you've got the social service agencies who are helping the people who need some help. And sadly, it's never hard to find the social service agencies because there are a lot of them helping people. And then you've got interested individuals who want to do something. So we've just got amazing stories of individuals who've raised their hand and said, I want to do something in my community. And often some of the volunteer food rescuers will bring their kids along so that they're seeing what's actually going on in their community, and they're meeting people that they would never have met before. And it's making connections, really helping people's neighbors. So it really is community by community that we're doing this work.
Yeah, community is so important as we address the climate crisis.
Yeah, for sure. Sure.
And then now, how about during COVID, distributing the food and people getting together, that type of thing? How has that affected your operations?
Right. So that's a really good question. So, gosh, now what are we now? We're May, hard to believe, but in March of 2020, we were sitting in our offices, and all of a sudden, like all of us, sort of woke up to the fact that this is going to be a really serious crisis, the pandemic. And we really wondered what the impact would be on Food Rescue US, and what the impact would be on food donations, what the impact would be for our volunteer food rescuers. And the reality is that at the very beginning, as a lot of organizations closed down, we had a real influx of food donations. Mm-hmm. So a school might be closing, and they were unloading their refrigerator, and we were able to pick that up, or a corporate dining. So, and then things sort of settled down a little bit. But so what we did was we created 3 programs that really were addressing the emergency of the pandemic. So we created what we called a restaurant meal program, where we were, from donations, purchasing at a very low cost meals that we were then delivering. And that was a great program because that was a win-win. It was helping restaurants who were obviously struggling mm-hmm. during the pandemic, but it also was giving us an influx of meals to deliver. Then we created community kitchens, and that was two really good examples of that, or there are many good examples of that. But we had a number of corporations that had sent their employees home, but they wanted to keep their kitchen staff open and are employed.
Oh, wow.
So they had them making meals that we were delivering. Such a great story. And
Oh, wow.
I know, it was a wonderful thing. And then the third program had to do with the farm distribution program. So we were working on that, and then we piggybacked onto the USDA Farmers to Families program. And so those three programs really fueled what we were able to do. And actually in 2020, we delivered more meals than we ever had, almost 19 million meals in 2020. And a lot of that, so it's sort of somewhat counterintuitive, because, you might have thought, oh my gosh, what's going to happen with the food donations? And so we made that work. But then the other point is we really weren't sure about our volunteers. And the reality is that we had so many people sign up as new volunteers, and it was something that people could do pretty much contactless free.
Right.
You go to a grocery store and you could, they would have the food on a table that we would pick up, or they would put it right in the car, and then you would drive it in your own car and take it to an agency, and people would, you could leave it there on a table or whatever. So we had people, and I think a lot of people were at home. We understand some of our volunteers, for health reasons or whatever, really weren't comfortable. But then we had many others who said, this is something I can do. And I'm sitting at home, and I'm working maybe at home, or I'm not working, but this is something I can take 30 minutes or 45 minutes and do something good for people in need in my community. So it actually worked out very well for us.
Well, and if anybody is just joining now, if you want to get involved, you can go to foodrescue.us.
Correct.
Right? That's the site. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, maybe I should look at some of the questions. I saw some questions go by. So let me see. Oh, and someone pointed out it's not food waste, it's wasted food.
Yes, I know.
That's true. I know. Yeah, the hashtag food waste has really caught on, but it really is wasted food.
Absolutely.
There's no such thing as food waste.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. So someone wants to know if there is, I saw it somewhere. Well, they want to know if there is a limit on what can be donated. There was some sort of restriction on what. I can't find the question now, but.
Well, we obviously are looking for fresh, healthy food, but it has to be, in good shape, let's say, and I have to say that in, 95 or 98% of the time, the food that we are receiving is wonderful food that you or I would, if it's coming from a grocery store, would go to the grocery store and be very happy to buy it. And it's incredible to see the amount of fresh, especially vegetables and fruit that are donated. And a lot of our food donors, it's part of their culture, I would say, to donate. They want to do this. So some of them actually plan to have, if it's a grocery store, we have some grocery stores who actually plan to have extra to be able to donate into their community.
Wow.
Which is
wow, that's wonderful.
It is wonderful.
Wow. Yeah, I looked on the map. I believe you are in Chico. I'm south of San Francisco in the Bay Area.
Uh-huh.
So
we should talk.
yeah, we should. I mean, there's a real need here.
Yep.
I haven't been to San Francisco for months. But it's the tents up there.
Yeah.
And yeah, we should talk.
Yeah, definitely. No, again, it's just, the need is so prevalent that, you can almost, I can't imagine going to someplace, even in some of the wealthier communities, there's still food insecurity. Absolutely. You don't often see it, or you might not see it.
Right. I mean, how do you know? You don't know?
No,
You know, like you can't just tell walking down the street, oh, that person's
no. But that's
insecure.
why we work with the social service agencies, because they know, because they're providing services to so many, and so that's where we we uh, we make that connection.
And you think the numbers will improve a little bit in this year, but they're still going to be higher than pre-COVID.
That's what we think. Yes, because it was starting to trend down a bit, but still, if
Mm-hmm.
you think, if we think about whether it's 30 million people or 40 million people or 50 million people food insecure, and that means they don't always know where their next meal is going to come from, or how they're going to feed their family. Some days they will have food, but not every day. And when you have kids, obviously food is something we need every day. It's the fuel that keeps us going, that allows us to work, to go to school, uh, to function. So, uh, anything, anything in the millions is just too much. It's a crisis, serious crisis.
Right, right, right. Yeah, I remember from calculus class, infinity plus infinity is still infinity.
Well said. Absolutely.
Yeah. So my daughter just started working in waste management. Um, she's in Northern California, and she asked me if you operate in rural areas, or are you mostly in cities?
No, yes, we operate in all kinds of, all kinds of places, both rural and urban. And depending on, so for instance, in the urban areas, where, as I said, we're in Miami, we're in Detroit, we're in Washington, D.C., we're in Columbus. So a number of larger urban areas. But then we are in some smaller areas, like we're in Northwest Connecticut, which is not very densely populated. And so it's more difficult for people to access some of the agencies that are servicing them. And we've done just tremendous work up there during the pandemic in particular, but for a number of years. So no, if all it takes actually to start a location, and we talk about this a lot, and we have people who reach out to us, daily through our website, or they might give a call. But you need one or two food donors. You need one or two social service agencies, which again, sadly, not hard to find, but it's also good. There's so many agencies helping. And then you need a handful of volunteers. You can start a location with very little, but you need a food donor, obviously. The food donor is critical, but we're finding it almost easier, because the two crises of both food insecurity and food waste are becoming, I think, better understood. If anything, if a silver lining in the pandemic, I think all the focus on food that was being dumped. We all saw the pictures of milk that was being poured onto the ground, but we also saw the long lines of people waiting to pick up food. And I think it really it put a spotlight on both crises. And I think that awareness hopefully will bode well for getting more people involved in solving both crises.
Yeah. Well, I hope some people on here will get involved. Go
That,
to foodrescue.us.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, let me see. I'll see if there are some questions here. Someone's asking, can you give food to the homeless encampments?
Generally, we go through the agencies that serve, many of them serve homeless people. And so we're delivering the food directly to the agencies, but I know many of them, I mean, the agencies we work with come in, they have all kinds of missions. So we have some children's shelters for veterans. We have shelters for the homeless. There's one that I visited, that they actually have beds for the homeless people, but they also open up their doors or this was pre-COVID, I'm not sure if they're back to it yet, at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and anybody could come in and have a meal because they have an active kitchen working 7 days a week. So, so that's how we address that.
Wow. It's just wonderful what you're doing. It's really nice to, I don't know, hear something positive come out of this.
Well, and
these two crises.
It's quite, I mean, it's an honor to be able to do this work, but what's really inspiring are the individuals, are the food donors and the volunteers who step up to say, I want to do something, because we organize it and we help them and we train them and we create at considerable expense, obviously, the technology, but it's the people in the communities who are doing the work and making it happen. And that's just one of the best things about watching people give back.
Yeah.
That's what's all better.
And we're talking thousands of people. I mean, you have all your thousands of volunteers, but like you said, all of those thousands of businesses and
yeah. I think that's absolutely right.
Well, did you have anything else you wanted to tell people while we're on here?
Well, a
few minutes left.
I love what you're doing. I was reading
thanks.
Some of the things and some of your ideas, so I'm going to try some of the recipes.
Oh, thanks.
But
yeah, I'm kind of obsessed with food waste. I started with plastic waste. I wanted to cut plastic, and then that just kind of made me aware of all waste. And then I heard the numbers around, I don't know, it was 2013 or 14, and I thought, what? 40% of food? How can that be? It's insane.
And the damage it's doing to our environment is so serious. And we don't have, a lot of time, depending on, who you're talking to or what numbers, but, the time is now to make a difference, to attack both these crises. But the food waste one and the impact on our climate is dramatic, and it's real. So whatever we can do to stem the tide, now is the time. I really do believe that.
Yeah. Well, and there is much more awareness now than just, I'd say, even 5 years ago.
Yeah.
On food waste, or rather wasted food, I should call it.
Good for you. And I think, the whole climate conversation and with the weather and awareness of wasted food, and especially a lot of young people are really, I mean, this is our planet, but it's their planet and it's our grandkids' planet. And so it behooves all of us to take this really seriously and think about all the ways that we can help.
Right. Yeah, there seems to have been a shift in the last, well, I'm in Northern California, so, we had the fires last fall, and it went on for a month.
I know.
It was apocalyptic.
I have kids, our son and his family, they live in Southern California, and it was raging around them, and it just, it just hits you. And if it's not that, it's, the storms in the Gulf Coast, or, and there've always been storms and fires, but they definitely seem so much worse.
Yep, they were. So.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah. Well, if anybody just joined us, I'm speaking with Carol Shattuck, the CEO of Food Rescue US, and if you want to get involved, you can volunteer to rescue food and get it to the social agencies that will distribute it. Or if you're a business, you can get involved. Go to foodrescue.us.
Correct. Thank you so much. Love chatting with you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'm really honored. Thank you for what you're doing.
Well, it's obviously very much a team effort, and but we're obviously very passionate about it, and we see the impact, the positive impact. So thank you.
That's wonderful. Well, thanks very much.
Yeah, take care. Great
Nice to meet you. Yeah, great to talk to you. Bye. Thanks everybody for coming.
Bye.
Bye.